Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're at, whichever one applies. Thank you again for tuning in. And we're going to get to it. Oh, before we get to it, I just want to say hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, or whatever button you feel fits this video. So thank you again. So this one is continuing what I wanted to do in regards to the Bilderberg group. So there was 14 agendas that they covered in the Bilderberg group, and I'm going to cover another point today. So each reference and each video is going to be related to each other in regards to the all 14 points that was done. So this particular point that I'm touching on is point number 12, fragmentation of democratic societies. Now all of these points are pretty deep, but this one I think is relevant because it pretty much relates also to the pandemic, and it also goes over the temperament of this country and this planet right before the pandemic and right before Casper virus. So I think a major reason why the Bilderberg group and the individuals that are at this meeting, who we went over the list in the first Bilderberg video that we did, which I'll put in the description. The reason why this topic is important, fragmentation of democratic societies, I think we should look at 2019 to see what was going on. 2019 might be more important than any of the years in the 2020s. The reason why I say that is because there's something called populism. And populism is basically when the citizens or people of a given country or nation, they start to become dissatisfied with their government. And they become so dissatisfied that they actually start doing drastic measures like taking to the streets, high-level protesting, and really expressing their dissatisfaction and outrage with their government, their leaders, and the country as a whole. There's an article in The Atlantic and The Economist, and it addresses 2019 was the year of the most political unrest that this country, that this planet has ever seen. That means that prior to 2019, there's never been so many people across the world, across different countries, that have expressed populism and dissatisfaction with their government as it was in 2019. That's very important to remember when we talk about this topic of fragmentation of democratic societies. I'm going to read what that means, fragmentation of democratic societies, so then we can get more context. Political fragmentation is the dispersion of political power into so many hands and centers of power that it becomes difficult for democratic governments to function effectively. So what was going on in 2019, which I personally think was a reason why this pandemic was staged in advance and why this pathogen, right, virus, is not legitimate. It's not something that's real. And the reason why I say that is because 2019, because you had so many people dissatisfied, I think it's quite a coincidence that at the end of 2019 is when they announced Casper virus, right? So once they did that, all of the protests that was happening, I mean political unrest was happening in many parts of South America, many parts of Asia, here in America. I mean pretty much every continent except Antarctica had political unrest throughout the continent. This has never happened before collectively at the same time ever. And then all of a sudden we're in a pandemic, and then that slows down. Now that everything is starting to die down a little bit with the pandemic, you're starting to see people's dissatisfaction come out more. So the fact that this is a major point at the Bilderberg meeting signals to me that they have to have a solution for the people in these countries around the world. Because Western society, and anytime you hear Western society or anytime you hear the East, that's pretty much coded for a collective power, racial, ethnic terms. West means white, European. East means non-white, people of color. After World War II, and I'll cover this in the NATO video, Europeans, white people of prominence, of power, consolidated their power and made a pact to not fight with each other. And if there's anybody or any country that has shown to be a threat, these individuals would band together. These Western countries would band together to neutralize that threat. What's happening now is the real threat is the people. People are not happy with government. People are dissatisfied, and this was shown with Obama and Trump. And then now it's really shown now after Obama and Trump in the Biden administration, where you have a polarized type of government. You have Republicans standing on one issue and you have Democrats standing on another. That's always been the case, but now it's so heightened after these two presidencies that people are pissed off and they're a ticking time bomb. This is something that has to be neutralized. And I think one of the ways to neutralize it, one is to realize that democracy is pretty much finished. There is no way that a democracy around the world can exist with the people feeling like they're feeling. You have these high gas, everything is high, right? Everything is high. We have a pandemic. There's record-breaking things going on in the opposite direction. So people are upset. So what can't happen is people getting so upset that they start to have revolutions, organic revolutions, and they start revolting. So I think one way to neutralize that is to have everybody on the same page around the world. If you get rid of governments, right? If you get rid of fragmented governments, if you get rid of independent political systems in each country, and you have one form of government that everybody around the world follows, then that kind of eliminates all of the separation, and it kind of solves everything in one full swoop. And one way to implement that one world government is by making things digitized. If everything is digitized, it slows people down and it gets everybody on the same page. And I think that this particular topic at this meeting is focusing on that. How can we neutralize people around the world that are unhappy with their government and function? So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a concerted effort for countries to come together and have one type of government, one type of currency, one type of belief system that will put everybody on the same page, that will unite people. It will be under the guise of uniting people, and it will eliminate everybody going their own way, feeling the need to take control of their own life and their own destiny. So if you have this kind of system and you have this kind of operation around the planet, it puts all the countries in one accord, it puts all the world leaders in one accord, it puts all the governments in one accord, and it minimizes from the viewpoint of those that are in power, that control the resources. It makes people easier to manage. And making people easier to manage was always the agenda. And that's something that needs to be looked at. So when we're looking at this particular topic, I think that's the overall goal, is to pretty much limit democracy, put everything together, and make it to where there is no kind of voting system, or there's no system in which the collective have a say-so. And I think that's where we're moving towards. So that's something that I think that they're going, and I think that's something that we need to look out for. And we need to look out for everything being digitized to actual human beings. The cities that you live in, they're going to be more controlled by technology, to the point where everything is, it's like that now, but it's going to be official. It's going to be one currency, because you have Russia and you have China on the surface vying for power to kind of wean themselves off the dollar and make themselves independent. China right now is attempting to make themselves independent when it comes to technology, where they want to be a one-stop shop of producing all of their technological needs in-house, which means no exports. just them. And that's why this China and Taiwan beef, which America is entered themselves into, is so important. Then you have Russia saying that we're going to just not deal with the American dollar at all. So when you have these types of things, it creates it's instability with the people that live in these places. So what's going to come out of this whole Russia-Ukraine situation, and what's I'm sure came out of this Bilderberg meeting, which we're going to cover in another one of the topics, is a unified currency. This way you don't have any rogue countries like Russia or China getting any bright ideas. And this is part of why they killed Gaddafi, because Gaddafi was looking for that same kind of independence. He was looking for that same kind of independence in the East. And anytime you have power in the East that's not aligned with Europeans, which is mostly white, establishment, then they're going to knock you off. And this is what happened with Gaddafi, and this is what happens to any non-European nation that decides that they want to have a kind of independence outside of the three-headed beast of Rome, America, and London. And this is what's going on. And how that's going to affect the American people is that normally where you have a say-so to decide where you want your officials that you vote for and what you want them to do, when you get rid of that, your options are less. You have no choice. You have no ability to have freedom in how you spend. You have no privacy because what you make is going to be technologically monitored. And you have less movement in your belief system. This is important because that makes, like I said, consolidation much easier. So that's something to look out for. So I think what's going to come in the next 5 years is you're going to see a lot of things in the news regarding governments eliminating their party systems, experimenting with something new, more interdependence in relation to other countries. You might see a willingness of certain countries like America and other European countries working together in order to appear as if that's the best interest. You might see a world police system where you might see officers that are not from America actually policing in this country. Now, they tested this out in the medical system when people was actually not going to work because of their beliefs in terms of the vaccine. You actually seen the government implement military personnel to work in these hospitals. So if they attempted that in the health field, it's not far-fetched to think that they won't do that in policing. And they've already had a world police. They've already had the UN soldiers actually have this in place for the longest. So if you have a unified police system, that already eliminates the problem of police. It wouldn't matter if you defund them because it's automatically going to be United Nations. It's automatically going to be global. So the way that policing operates is going to be uniform across the world. So fragmenting and analyzing democracies at this meeting could just be code for them saying one world government. So look out for that. So I'm going to conclude this video. I just wanted to establish that. So be on the lookout for that in the media. Anything to make everything one world and collective is the agenda, and I'm pretty sure that that's what they covered in this topic. So with that, peace.